Joining me right now is Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst, and Cheryl Dorsey, retired LAPD sergeant and author of the Confidence Chronicles, the greatest crime story never told. Glenn, first to you here. We hear in some of this body camera footage some of these officers saying he's high, he tried to grab my gun. What was your reaction to hearing some of those statements on body camera when none of the other preceding video alluded to those things?
Lindsay, let me say, as a homicide prosecutor for 22 of my 30 years as a federal prosecutor, nothing I heard on that tape will detract or will serve as a defense when these men are tried for this murder. You know, what you are watching on the video that was recently released looks like a gang murder to me. I have seen these sort of mass assaults that escalate and devolve into a murder of somebody, and it reminded me of what I saw. This looked like a gang murder. And Lindsay, this is not one bad officer or two or three. This is 5 bad officers who took the life of Tyre Nichols. Not one stepped up to try to de-escalate or tell the other officers to stand down, because deadly violence was not necessary for these officers to protect themselves or other members of the community. I'm glad charges were brought by the state authorities so quickly. I am heartened that there has been a civil rights investigation opened by the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Tennessee, because, as he said, it looks like there was a deprivation of Tyre Nichols' constitutional rights. You saw the Fourth Amendment being violated in that video, and prosecutors and defense attorneys know the Fourth Amendment like a mantra, right? The right of the people to be secure in their person's houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated by government actors. You saw Tyre's right to be free of an unreasonable seizure, an unreasonable arrest, violated on camera, on video, and I'm glad that both local and federal authorities are stepping up to address it promptly.
Per that, Cheryl, it's not even that these officers, I mean, we can have the larger conversation too about other people who were on the scene and did nothing and didn't render aid, but even these officers, it's not just that nobody stepped up and said this is wrong. They propped him up. They allowed this to continue and took turns for 3 minutes. Cheryl, talk to me about that element of what Memphis PD Chief Davis calls groupthink. And also, I was watching last night, you were talking to Tom Yamas on NBC News Now on Top Story, and you were talking about the fact that this looked like police revenge, like they were mad that they had to give chase, for example. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, it's part of the police culture. I mean, it's an unspoken thing that we all know occurs. When you run from the police and they catch you, you will pay. You will be punished. And we saw Mr. Nichols being punished from the very start. And so as I start to learn more and more about this incident, Chief Davis has a problem. And I appreciate her efforts. I appreciate the fact that she fired these first 5 initially, immediately. But she's partially trying to save her own butt, because, listen, there were more than 5 officers there who did not intervene, who acquiesced that misconduct. And when you do that, you're committing misconduct. It's reported by the mother of Tyre Nichols that someone came to her home and told her, do you know Tyre? He's been arrested for DUI. He's on his way to the hospital. We're going to book him. And no, you can't go to the hospital to see him. I want to know who went there. Did the chief know? Did she send those officers there? And so she has a role to play in this. The buck stops with her. How she has these 2-year to 5-year officers in a specialized unit with prior complaints, I'm sure we'll find out later down the road. Knowing great deference is given to the version that officers give when someone makes a complaint would explain why nothing was done when that young man complained allegedly a few days before the Tyre incident. And so she's got a lot of work to do. And I'll tell you one more problem she has. We know that these officers are liars. There's a reason she looked at that Sky Cop camera, because someone in a supervisory position went to the hospital and saw Mr. Nichols' injuries and realized that the officers lied, which means they gave false and misleading statements, a terminable offense, which means they cannot be police officers. And so the DA needs to look into every case that those officers have arrested someone on, because now each and every case is tainted. She's got a problem on her hands.
Glenn Kirshner and Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey will have to leave it there, but my thanks to both of you. And coming up, calls grow for